Hey loves, Cyn Doll here coming at you with another video, and in this video we are going to talk about Tricorexis Nodosa. The hair shaft is split into multiple fibers that look like this. So if you want to learn more about tricorexis, the causes, and some things that can prevent you from getting this hair shaft disorder in the first place, then keep on watching. If you are OG to my channel, hey, thank you for coming back, and we have something new to talk about. And if you're new here, hey, hello, my name is Cyn Doll, and I am a licensed cosmetologist, trichologist, herbalist, scientist, and so many other things. And in this video, we are going to talk about tricorexis and how you can get it in the first place. Now, when you say damage, you think of split ends, right? And most people think that when a hairstylist or a cosmetologist is telling you to get a trim every so often, it is because they want you to cut your hair. But the truth of the matter is, we are really just trying to prevent you from getting certain hair shaft disorders. And in this series, we're going to go over many different hair shaft disorders, and this is the very first one. So let's hop right into this. Get your pen and paper and leave your little sensitive nasty feelings at the door because we're going deep. Now, this is characterized as weak points or nodes across the hair shaft. This is gonna make your hair a lot more prone to breaking. Now, this can come from a lot of different factors: over styling, excessive mechanical damage, product overload on the hair shaft, different chemical services being done improperly, too much protective styling or protective styling done in the wrong way, which we're going to talk about in a second, and a couple of other different things. So stick around. Number one is going to be excessive heat styling. Now, I know that if you like to wear your hair straight, every time your hair reverts back, you want to pick up a flat iron. But the truth of the matter is, it has nothing to do with your curls leaving. That's a whole nother thing. We're talking about cuts and rips within the hair shaft, because just because somebody's curl pattern is gone does not mean that their hair shaft has holes or rips or tears in it, right? It's just a change in the cortex of the hair shaft, which we'll talk about in another video. But by heat styling your hair too much, and by not having the right pattern, what ends up happening, you end up creating weak points within the hair shaft. And when you create weak points within the hair shaft, you cause the hair to split and break. So when you are heat styling your hair too much, you end up weakening the hair's cuticle. And when you weaken the hair's cuticle, you end up making splits and tears and little microscopic holes that end up making the hair shaft more susceptible to damage, which in return weakens the hair shaft and makes it more susceptible to breakage. But remember that if you know what you're doing when it comes to flat ironing your hair, you won't have this problem. A lot of times when people get damaged when they're flat ironing their hair, they're not doing it properly, and that's just the truth of the matter. This is coming from somebody who stood behind the chair for over a decade, well over a decade, whose specialty was silk presses, and all of my clients' curls reverted back every single time. But they were not coming to get their hair straightened every week. They were coming every 3 weeks, and there was a pattern and a routine. So if you have a set pattern and a certain routine and a certain technique, when you're taking your hair from alpha keratin to beta keratin. Alpha keratin is the natural state that your hair is in, like when it's curly or whatever your hair is, when it is wet, like its natural state, that is alpha keratin. Beta keratin is the new state that you set your hair in whenever you do heat styling, roller sets, whatever it's in, until the hydrogen bond is broken again. So you want to make sure that you are properly maintaining your hair. Chemical treatments. Now, when you do chemical treatments, and that's anything, relaxers, relaxers, different curl reformations, Japanese straightening, and all of the different ones listed on the screen. They escape me right now, but excessive chemical services. Even if you think that you're doing it the right way, if you don't know what you're doing and you're not using the proper chemicals, what that will do, it will end up creating nodes within the hair shaft. And this is what a node looks like, right? It'll create different lumps and humps and all types of stuff within the hair shaft. It's another thing that a lot of people think isn't damaging to the hair shaft, but it really is, and that's henna. People think that they can use as much henna as they want and it's not going to damage their hair, but the truth of the matter is henna never leaves the hair shaft, ever. A lot of people think that, oh, henna's not a chemical, so it's good for your hair, but that's not true. Henna will never leave the hair shaft. If you put henna in your hair and then you go into a hair salon to try to get a lighter color or to try to get highlights or something like that, it will be a nightmare. Henna in the hair shaft is a colorist's worst nightmare. Go ask any colorist. So when you overuse henna, it seems like it'll be a good thing at first, but over the years, long term, you end up weakening the hair shaft. This is why so many people will be like, oh, I'm heat free, I'm chemical free, and all of this stuff for years, but then go into a hair salon for one silk press and then their hair is ruined. I'll get to that in a second. Underlying medical conditions, this is really important. Remember that your hair is built within your gut. Like, you are literally a complete and total universe, right? So within your gut is where biotin is created. Biotin is not something that you need from an outside source. Biotin is produced within your gut. So it is by you having a healthy diet and by you ingesting like the right herbs, by you ingesting the right herbs, which is the earth's medicine for your body, then it makes it so easy for you to get the things that you need. When it comes to your medical conditions or medical conditions that can lead to this hair shaft disorder, this is directly connected to your diet. Now, sometimes, depending on different illnesses that you may have in your body, it may directly affect your hair. You know why? You know, your body is a city, and sometimes if your body is fighting off an illness or a disease, it's putting most of that energy towards fighting that disease and almost none on your hair. So this is why you then need to ingest certain herbs, certain botanicals that aid your body in producing new hair growth cells as it is fighting off a disease or an invader of the body, if you will. Your environment. So if you are a person like me, you live in Las Vegas, Nevada, sometimes it's like 100+ degrees. So if you're a person who works in the sun, or if you always have constant sun exposure, even though the sun is great, sometimes a little bit too much of it will ruin your hair shaft. It'll weaken it, right? So you want to make sure that you have the proper type of leave-in conditioner. Leave-in conditioner is not just for heat tools. Leave-in conditioner is your heat protector for your blow dryer, and it is your protection from environmental pollutions and things of that nature. But remember, if you're layering products on your hair, you're actually not protecting it, you're actually cooking your hair. That'll be coming up in my next video where we get in deep about the lock method and how the lock method has led to a lot of scalp disorders, but not right now. Hair shaft disorder is very, very preventable by you just simply changing a couple of things around. So let's go into those. The accumulation of heavy products on the hair shaft can drastically contribute and lead to this hair shaft disorder. The more products you add to your hair during styling, the more likely you are to develop this hair shaft disorder. Remember, even though it looks like you have a whole bunch of hair in one cluster, your hair shaft is paper thin, like less than paper thin, but you have hundreds and thousands of hairs on your scalp at one time. So it gives you the illusion that your hair shaft is a lot thicker than it is. But by you layering products on top of the hair shaft, what you end up doing is blocking air circulation in and out of the hair's cortex and in and out of the hair's cuticle. You completely shut down airflow. And by you shutting down airflow, you weaken the hair shaft. And by weakening the hair shaft, you cause nodes. And then nodes lead to small forms of breakage, which eventually lead to these fiber-like pieces on the hair shaft. Buildup of different products like the ones listed here on the screen will lead to a weaker, more brittle hair shaft. If you are cut off from oxygen flow, from exposure to everything and all of the elements, when you finally get some exposure, you're gonna be weak than a mug, and that's what's happening to y'all hair. It's weak than a mug. Crochet braids seem nice in theory, but long-term crochet braids end up being quite damaging to the actual hair shaft, because you are taking a fiber and wrapping that fiber around your hair shaft and letting it rub for months, right? And it sounds like it's okay long-term, but when you look at the hair shaft on a microscopic level, especially if you're washing the hair, especially if you keep it raised up in ponytails, or if you're really active and you have it in your hair for long periods of time, there are certain people with certain levels of porosity that actually find crochet braids quite damaging to the hair shaft. And this is one of the most leading causes of this hair shaft disorder, because of the constant rubbing and tension from the crochet braids going in multiple directions all over the hair shaft. Am I saying that crochet braids are something that you shouldn't wear? No, I'm not. What I'm saying is crochet braids is something that you should do sporadically. It shouldn't be like, oh, I'm doing crochet braids this whole year. That is the quickest way to get this hair shaft disorder. When you have this hair shaft disorder, or to avoid this hair shaft disorder altogether, it is so important to avoid hairstyles that require you to have tight braids, right? Tight pulling and tugging on the hair shaft. If your hair is in pain, if your scalp is in pain when you have braids, that is your body telling you that it's too tight. And 9 times out of 10, when you take those braids out, even if you have a lot of hair growth, this is why most women, when they finally do go into a hairstylist to get their hair straightened after a summer full of wearing their hair in braids, their hair breaks off or is super duper broken or see-through. That is because the hair that is coming out of your scalp is what is giving you the length, but the hair that is already on your head is broken and damaged because it has been wrapped up in a weave that was too tight or a weave that was too heavy. So if you're a woman that puts 10-11 bundles in her head at one time, even though everything may seem good right now, down the line it may hurt, right? Even now, these are not actual box braids in my head. This is a wig. I'll put a clip here of how it looks. I'll put a clip here of how it looks whenever I take it down, and every night before I go to bed, I make sure that I take this wig off. I undo the 2 braids that are under my wig, and then I brush them out, braid them back up, and then chicka boom, chicka bam, right? So you want to make sure that you do not have tight styles that put strain on the hair shaft, because this leads directly to this hair shaft disorder. Next up is going to be brushing hair when it's wet or combing hair when it's wet. Now, there is a difference between combing your hair and detangling your hair. So what I'm talking about right now is not actually combing the hair, but detangling the hair when it is wet. This is a little illustration of combing, and this is an illustration of detangling. I'm talking about this. When you're detangling the hair, you want to make sure that the hair is dry. Why is this? Your hair is a fiber, and this fiber that is your hair, that is made up of keratin, is weakest when it is wet, right? It's weakest when it is wet. So it is imperative for you to avoid breakage that when you are detangling the hair, you use a non-comedogenic oil with slip, right? One of my favorites is walnut oil and hemp seed oil. You can use either one of these oils to detangle your hair, and then you shampoo your hair. By doing this, you minimize the breakage and the tension and the strain that you're putting on your hair shaft, because remember, your hair shaft wants to stay together. So as you're combing and detangling, as you're detangling your hair wet, your fibers are trying to stay together, and by them trying to stay together, let's say the hair doesn't break, you still stressed it out, and when you stress out the hair shaft, it sends a signal to your scalp like something's wrong, which in return puts a small amount of your hair follicles in the telogen phase, which then in return results in slower hair growth, a slower hair growth cycle. If you look here on the screen, you can see multiple women that have taken my 7-day challenge. By them simply changing all of their Team Natural hacks, they're able to finally see growth with little to no effort. All right, make sure if you haven't done so already, you go ahead and sign up for my 7-day challenge. Just do it. Trimming your hair every 8 to 10 weeks. This is something that for whatever reason, it's like talking about somebody mama, girl. When you say you gotta trim your hair, girl, it's like talking about somebody mama. But listen, when we're talking about prevention, one of the easiest ways to completely avoid this hair shaft disorder is trimming your hair regularly. Trimming your hair and cutting your hair are two completely different things. If you're trimming your hair regularly, and let's say you have a good hairstylist that you're used to going to, that's a good one, you can trim your own hair and it will be fairy dust. Or you can click this video right here, link in the description box below, and a video link where I teach you how to trim your own hair, description box below. Check it out. Like, you can trim your own hair every 8 to 10 weeks, and it could just be a little bit of fairy dust. And by doing this, let's say you had like a lazy day. For example, my family, we just moved this week, right? So I didn't wash my hair like I normally do. I wasn't treating my hair like I normally do because we were moving and doing a bunch of stuff, right? So this week in particular, right, when I went to trim my hair, I thought it was going to be a lot of breakage, but it wasn't, right? But let's say it is. It's not a big deal. With this method that I teach you in this video here, check it out in the description box below. It shows you exactly how to trim your own hair. And by you trimming your hair, you prevent these splits from going up the hair shaft. Once your ends split, that's it. Your end splitting is just like one of your nails breaking. Once a nail splits, it doesn't matter how much glue you put on it, it'll hold it together temporarily, but it's just gonna keep splitting until it gets to the other side of the nail bed, then it breaks and falls off. Your hair shaft is the same exact way, is made of the same exact protein that is produced in your gut. All right, the form of biotin that produces your hair, skin, and nails is produced in your gut. It's made of the same thing, made of the same thing, made of the same thing. The only difference is your hair and your nails don't regenerate itself like your face does, like your skin does. Choose high quality products. I know that across social media they teach you just layer on a couple of low budget products and you'll be good, but in reality, if you really take the time to calculate the amount of money that you spent on all of these 300 million products that are under the sink versus you spending your money on a good quality hair care product that you're not using that much of, that is super concentrated and a little bit goes a long way, you save your money drastically, and you're also able to really retain that length, because everybody's hair grows, but most of us, it's our practices that prevent us from retaining length. When you're doing protective styling, most of the time protective styling is where this disorder is caused, because you think that just because your hair is braided up that you're not hurting your hair, but that's not true. Most of the time when your hair is braided up, that is the time where this disorder is being caused. Number one, if you can, if you don't know what you're doing, I really recommend that you go and seek a professional, and a real professional, not one that says you're a professional because she got a YouTube channel, but a real life professional that really knows what they're doing, that doesn't just know how to braid hair, but actually knows the science of your body and your scalp and knows what you can and cannot take. A lot of people aren't gonna like what I have to say here, but if you are going to a hairstylist or a braider that cannot braid your hair without taking a shitload of edge control and putting it on your scalp, you should probably find like a new braider if you're having scalp issues. Even though it may seem okay now, down the line it will cause major problems within the hair's follicle. I need y'all to remember, braids and box braids have been around forever and edge control has not. And we were doing box braids and getting box braids without edge control for a long time. Sizing and weight. Remember to make sure that the size of the wig that you're using or whatever, make sure that it's not too tight on the head. It's not gripping too tight, because that will weaken the hair shaft. Make sure that you're not putting too many bundles in your head on a sew-in, because remember, your actual hair is what's holding on to all 10 of those bundles, and then once you wash it, it makes the hair shaft weaker, and then your hair is holding on to all 10 of those bundles, so it just makes it worse and worse and worse over time, leading to a weak hair shaft with major nodes across it by the time you get ready to take out that install. That's why you can't figure out, like, no matter what you do, even though you haven't touched your hair, even though you haven't used no chemicals, your hair is still broken off. This is why. Traction alopecia is exactly what it sounds like. It comes from too much traction, too much pulling. If you get any type of protective style and it is painful, take it out. It is literally your body screaming, telling you that it's something wrong and that it's about to fall out. It's basically telling you,
girl, this shit hurt. I did not know you was about to do this. I don't know how much louder you want me to scream. In a minute, I'm all Michael Jackson and all 100,000 of our kids, and we about to get up out of here because you on that bush.
Traction alopecia comes from too much traction during protective styling. Most of y'all need protection from your protective styles. Next up is hygiene. Make sure that you're not keeping weaves and protective styles in too long, because when you keep weaves and protective styles in too long, what you end up doing is causing bacteria on the scalp. And when bacteria accumulates on the scalp, it attacks the follicle. And when it attacks the follicle, it weakens the follicle's link to your body's blood supply, which in return weakens the hair shaft, making it more prone and susceptible to breakage. Basically, the dirtier you leave your scalp, the less likely your hair shaft is going to be to stay strong. It's just going to slowly give up on life because you don't care about it, so it's not going to care about you. Make sure that when you are getting extensions, you get some good ones. If you get some extensions from Mimi, if you get your extensions from somebody cheap, it's gonna look cheap and your scalp gonna look cheap and it's gonna be itching and burning. So you get what you pay for and you ain't gonna have no follicles left. So don't get no cheap hair. Wearing duration. Wearing and protective styles for long periods of time increases the chances of you getting this follicle, this hair shaft disorder. By you leaving a weave in your hair for 3-4 months, you weaken the hair shaft. Your hair's follicle has cycles and your hair shaft has cycles. And by you leaving weaves or protective styles in your hair for long periods of time, you're disrupting that hair cycle. And if it's not able to complete the cycle, it'll stop. And by it stopping, you then throw off your hair's natural hair growth cycle. So you think that a protective style is helping your hair grow, but in reality, you're actually setting your hair growth cycle back. This is why a lot of women are like, oh my God, black women's hair won't grow or our hair won't grow. It's not that. It's that the things that we do, it ends up cutting that growth cycle shorter, or it makes it not start altogether. Your scalp and your follicles, your hair shaft and your follicles are so stressed out that you are living intelligent effluvium, so your hair is never growing. But it's not because your hair won't grow, it's because the follicle is stressed out, because the hair shaft is stressed out. It makes sense, but of course if your growth is stunted or your hair growth cycle is slowed down, of course your hair barely grows, so the last thing you're going to do is trim your hair. So it's just a repetitive cycle. I understand, but we need to stop going this way and go this way. Trying to teach you how to go this way. Remember, protective styles are amazing, an amazing way to give your hair a break, but they have to be done the right way. And if your hair is not properly prepared for a protective style, you're not protecting anything. You're actually doing more harm than good, and your hair needs protection from the protective style. Fungal infections. Remember that when you have Now, fungal infections. You heard of wingworm, right? Guess what? It's like still a thing. And a lot of times, wingworm comes in the scalp of a lot of women and you don't really realize what it is. Most of the time when you see any type of flecks or dryness in the scalp, you automatically think it's dandruff, but it's really not. Let's talk about it. When hair is tightly braided or covered for too long, it creates a warm and moist environment, which is the exact environment that bacteria and fungus loves. Did you know that there is a form of yeast that naturally lives on the scalp? There is also another bacteria that we talked about in this video about folliculitis, so go watch it. And there is this certain bacteria that is there, and when you allow it to accumulate, when you have these different types of protective styles, what ends up happening is you weaken the hair's follicle. Again, with that fungus within the hair's follicle, it cuts off blood circulation and it eats away at the inner parts of the hair shaft, the cortex, and it creates nodes and lumps within the hair shaft. Wingworm of the scalp is called this, and folliculitis. These are two forms of scalp infections that come directly from what we see as protective styles. Product buildup, again, is one of those things that you have whenever you have protective styles, because product buildup is one of the main things that hunt the human scalp when you have protective styles, because you think that if you have a protective style, what you're supposed to do is take loads and clumps of oils and butters and just clump your scalp full of them. But in reality, what you're doing is adding more products to a cold, to a warm and damp area, and you're literally just feeding the bacteria that is there, not removing it, not cleansing it, but feeding it. So number one, follow the recommended time frame for hairstyles to be left in your head. Natural skin cell turnover cycle happens every 28 days. I used to tell my clients, I don't recommend you keeping a style in longer than 2 skin cell turnover cycles. That's 2 months. And after that first 28 days, you need to shampoo the hair in whatever way you can, and then sit under a hooded dryer until it dries naturally, so your hair is not holding on to the extension hair in its weakest form, which is when it's wet. So you are going to, this is just my recommendation, keeping a protective style in for no longer than 2 skin cell turnover cycles, so 2 months, right? And then in between there, shampooing the hair at least 1 time and sitting under a hooded dryer, allowing it to dry. That is my recommendation if you're going to do protective styles. Anything longer than that, you're going to need protection from the protective style, and I don't know how to do that because I don't go past that point. So I don't have something to tell you to do to go past that point. Just don't go past that point. Number 2 is going to be proper hygiene. All you want to do is make sure that you're cleansing the scalp. So for example, this is a wig, but let's say these were actually box braids. I wouldn't keep them in any longer, like I said, than 2 skin cell turnover cycles. And then because I sweat in my scalp once every 3 days, or anytime my scalp begins to itch, I take rose water on a cotton ball and cleanse my scalp with it. If you would like my scalp cleansing rose water, then make sure you click this link in the description box below and get your hands on some, because it's within Simple Apothecary. Pay attention to your scalp's health. Pay attention to any signs of redness, itching, scab formation, pus, anything. And if you see any of these signs during your protective style, it is no longer a protective style. It needs protection from you. Take that shit out. And if you feel any discomfort, like extreme burning, sensitivity, or pain when touching, go see a dermatologist. If your hair is sensitive to touch to the point where it's painful, you are in the midst of follicle death. And if you do not go to see a professional, there is a possibility that your follicles will never come back to life. Please go see a dermatologist or book a one-on-one consultation with me. Link in the description box below. Removal, gentle removal. When it is time to remove protective styles, do not add water first. Stop adding water first. Water automatically weakens your hair, and it makes your hair shaft weakest. Your hair is weakest when wet. So stop putting water on your hair to take stuff out, and keep it dry, right? And use oil to detangle. We talked about that already. Be gentle. So when we are talking about a weakened hair shaft, right, I know you're probably wondering like, okay, Cyn, you done told me all of this stuff about my hair shaft being weak, but what can I do to fix it? Don't worry about it. I have something for you in the apothecary. Nettle. Nettle is so amazing when it comes to strengthening the hair shaft. Nettle is rich in silica. Silica is one of those has amazing properties that lead to amazing strength and rejuvenation within the hair shaft. Remember, the hair shaft is produced within your gut. The biotin that is needed to make healthy and strong hair is produced within your gut, and silica is freaking amazing, and nettle is full of it. It's rich in vitamins A, C, and K, also is joined with powerful minerals like iron and amazing antioxidants. For more information on that and the detailed breakdown of which antioxidants and vitamins and nutrients that nettle holds, make sure you check my blog post, link in the description box below. These nutrients play an excessively crucial role in maintaining healthy and strong hair. For example, iron. The iron that nettle holds is vital for transporting oxygen to the hair's follicle. This is essential for hair growth and strength, and it's also why I told y'all that the lock method is literally the last thing that you should do, because you literally need pure and great oxygen flow to the follicle and in and out of the hair's cuticle. So locking it down, worst thing you can do, and the easiest way to weaken the hair shaft, causing this disorder. If you're trying to reverse all of that and you want a herb that is going to help you do that from the inside out and reset your body at absorbing moisture and oxygen from your environment and things of that nature, then nettle is an amazing addition. DHT reduction. Now, whenever we're talking about balding, the thing that attacks the hair follicle is something called DHT. This is the full name of it. That's why we just call it a DHT. We all have testosterone in the body, and I'll have a video coming really soon talking all about DHT specifically so we can break it down, but DHT is what attacks the hair's follicle, resulting in hair loss. Right? Stress can cause your body to release hormones that convert testosterone into DHT, which then begin to attack the hair follicle, resulting in balding. This is how stress inadvertently can cause balding by DHT levels. So by ingesting something like nettle, you are able to reduce the levels of DHT in your body, and you're also able to reduce the amount of those hormones that the body is releasing to convert that testosterone into DHT. Anti-inflammatory. Now, nettle is amazing with its anti-inflammatory properties. Most of the time, the things that we're dealing with the scalp are all linked to inflammation, whether this is coming from the things that you're eating, whether it's coming from stress. Remember, the more you stress, the more your body is triggered to send more sebum out, which then inadvertently results in inflammation, right? So by reducing these different levels within the body, it also reduces inflammation within the body, which directly can lead to the stressors being calmed down so that you're no longer losing hair at the rate that you're losing it, and the hair follicle is able to regenerate and strengthen itself with aids like OLAPLEX, right? OLAPLEX is a bond reconstructor. So let's say you're drinking nettle leaf and you're using OLAPLEX as a way to re-strengthen those bonds within your hair. It's super easy. And guess what? If you use the code link below, what you can do if it's your first time using OLAPLEX, as long as you spend $35, you can use the code _IamCynDoll_, but remember to put the underscore there or it's not gonna work, and then you will get a little gift. And this all the stuff that you're gonna get. Look right here, it's right here. All that stuff. So use the link in the description box below, get you some free OLAPLEX, and not just free OLAPLEX, they're gonna give you something. Learn even more about nettle. Make sure you head over to my blog so you can learn even more about nettle, different ways you can use it, different ways you can eat it, different ways that you can ingest it into the body, different recipes for teas, different recipes for like steak and chicken and stuff. All that stuff is over there. But if you want to avoid this hair shaft disorder, then you need to change the way that you look at protective styling and the way that you use products. Stay tuned for part 2, where I dive deep into the lock method and how the lock method has led to multiple hair shaft disorders and scalp disorders like alopecia, CCCA, and so many other forms of alopecia. Let's get into it.